So we completed journal approvals, revaluation, translation, and consolidation in the last session. These items we'll see in the next session. Today we'll focus on expense and tax. To implement Fusion expense application, we have to complete few setups. Let's talk about those basic setups. Here, when we talk about expense application, Oracle Fusion expense, or you can call as expense management also. Oracle Fusion expense management, or simply you can call as Oracle Fusion expense application. The Oracle Fusion expense application we can use to record employee related expenses. Employee can incur the expenses, they can create expense report. That expense report information we can transfer to GL payables application as expense invoice that we can process within the payables for the payment. Not only with the payables, if you want to integrate expense application with any third party application, that is also pretty much possible. The configuration that you can specify, like, are we going to process expense reports to payables to make the payments? We want to integrate expense application with any third party application so that payments can be processed from that application. That clearly we can specify. That. We'll see the basic setups. So Oracle expense basic setups. Oracle Fusion expense basic setups. What basic setups we have to complete? So when we talk about basic setups, first we have to configure system options. Take it as configure expense system options. Configure expense system options and create expense report templates. Create expense report template. And which user is going to create expense reports? Create that user. Okay. Or I'll say like our current user is going to create the expense report. Who will approve that expense reports? For that, we'll create separate user as ERP manager. And now we have it two users. One is ERP tree. The other user we are going to create as a ERP manager. So we will create employee supervisor relationship between these two users so that ERP tree will create expense reports. That expense report will be routed to the supervisor. Supervisor will approve the expense report. Will create employee supervisory relationship that we tested as a part of payables invoice approvals. The same we are going to do for expense also. So create employee supervisor relationship. And we need to set a default expense account for specific user from which user we are going to create expense reports. That you can take as provide default expense account at employee, you can say. Which employee is going to create expense report? That employee level, or say employee user level, we have to set default expense account. Then we'll create approval rules within the BPM. Create approval rule. What rule we are going to create? Employee supervisory approval hierarchy. To access expense application, we have certain roles. Those roles we need to assign to user. So that you can take the task as assign roles to user. Assign BU to user roles. And for synchronization, run LDAP job. So these are the basic setups we have to complete. When we talk about the process, so ERP tree, user will create expense report. Create expense report, and the same user will submit that expense report for approval. So submit for approval. So once the expense report is approved by supervisor, or else let's write it. The ERP manager will approve the expense report. Approve the expense report. Once expense report is approved by manager, then we'll run certain process which will transfer the expense report information to payables application as invoice. The process name, or say job name, you can take as process expense reimbursement. So employee submitting expense for reimbursement. So the job name is process expense reimbursement. So this is a job we have to submit so that the approved expense reports information can be transferred to AP application. From AP, we can review the expense report invoice. The expense report invoice, whatever we are transferring from expense application, the invoice type system will display as a payment request. We are just transferring the expense report information from expense application to payables. The invoice type would be payment request. That means expense department is requesting the payables department to make the payment against the expense report. So we have seen customer refund. System created payment request in the payables based on the initiative what you take within the receivables as a customer refund. The same way, whenever you submit expense report information to payables, system will create payment request in payables. So review payment request, so type of invoice. Review payment request invoice in AP. And we know how to process the payment, that we don't need to test separately. So these are the basic setups, and this is the process we are going to follow. So when you talk about these setups, we have seen common options for payables, system options for receivables. The same way for expense also we have system options. Expense report template. Within the expense report template, we'll define all the expense related items which employee can submit for reimbursement. What are the expenses the organization is allowing to employees to submit for reimbursement? All the expense items. When you say expense item, different type of expenses we set up within this template, so that whenever employees are going to book the expense report, whatever the items are available in the template, that they can access by selecting the relevant expense item, they can create the expense report. Yes, we need one more user who can act as a manager to approve the expense report. For that reason, we are going to create user, and we are going to test the approvals by following employee supervisory approval hierarchy. So we are going to create the relationship between the two users as an employee and the supervisor. And when we create expense report, so system has to identify for that employees belongs to which BU. Yes, system can identify employees belongs to which BU. The reason when you create employee user, we select business unit. We select business unit under legal entity. That's how it will identify. For that BU related account code combination, system required that we set within the employee user definition. System will take account from template, remaining code combination it will take from the employee user. We'll see in the system, we'll understand. The employee supervisory approval rule we are going to create by using the respective workflow. And we'll assign the roles as required. And we can provide the BU access. And we can run LDAP job for synchronization purpose. So these are the setups we are going to perform. First, we'll go and set up system options. Go to setup and maintenance. So search for system options, or you can say expense system options. So here is the task, manage expenses system options. Click on the task. Click on the same task once again. Now, if you look at system options for expense, by default, Oracle is providing the system options for all the business unit. For all the business units, Oracle is providing the default system options. Default. If you want to change the system options as per the requirement, yes, we can do it. Okay, here you can find your BU and you can set all these options for your business unit so that those system options will be applicable for our business unit accordingly. If you don't set any system options, whatever the default system options Oracle is providing, the same will be applicable. The same will be applicable. So here you can see whatever, like what is allowed, what is not allowed. Say for example, when you are creating expense report, the payment method system should allow to change and allow overriding the approver, changing the approver. If you set to yes, you can override the approver, and various controls you can set by using the system options. And here you can specify when you create expense report, system will generate expense report number. And what should be the default prefix for the expense report that we can set here. So expense management. so that we can understand when the invoice information is available in the payables, which is resulted from expense report, we can have a clue it is related to expense report. Of course, we'll have an invoice type which is separate, but still, when you create expense report, you can set prefix. When system will generate expense report number, it will use the same prefix and it will trigger number generation. And again, here you set another key control. You are going to create expense reports and you are going to pay those expense reports through payables or any other application. So we are going to create expense reports in the expense application, but we are going to pay those through payables application. If you want to pay through payables, select payables so that expense report information can be interfaced to payables, then you can make the payment. So you have a requirement, you want to create expense reports in expense management application, but these expenses you want to pay through some third party application, maybe third party payroll application, or it could be third party payables application. Then you can select pay expense reports through third party. That's how you can tell to the system so where we are going to transfer expense reports. If you want to set separate controls for our business unit, then here you can just add your business unit and you will be able to set. So you just check for our business unit. Here is our BU, select and click on edit. Now enable payment method, use setup from all business units. Enable payment method, here what is available? Enable payment method is set to yes. The same will be applicable for our business unit if you accept it. Here it is set to yes. For our business unit, you may set to no. So enable payment method, you can set to no. So we are overriding for our business unit. So that's how the BU level you may set overrides, or else whatever the setup is available for all the BUs, you may accept. So when you look into this, we don't need to change anything. And we are looking at these controls under user options for expense report. Just go to next tab. So same like the number what we given as a prefix when system will create expense report, the same it is defaulting from the all business unit setup. If you want to change it for RBU, yes, you can change here. You select use setup from all business unit, whatever we given all business unit level system options, the same system will fetch. And here go to processing options for expense report. So here is the liability account. You can tell to the system when expense report will turn into invoice in the payables, when expense report will turn into invoice in the payables. That means expense report information will transfer to payables. Based on the expense report, system will create expense report invoice. The name would be payment request. The type of invoice would be payment request. When system will create invoice against expense report in the payables, so which liability account we want to use? Here you can set use setup from Oracle Fusion Payables. So within the payables, whatever the liability account we have in the common options, same liability account system will use if you select this first radio option. If you select define value specific to business unit, that means you may create and provide separate liability account which talks about employee liability. In payables, what we have? Supplier liability. Here you may specify employee liability account. How organization is required, accordingly you can set up here. So since we loaded setups through rapid implementation, so this account system is taking automatically. So which liability account? Employee payables, nothing but employee liability account system is defaulting. So that's how we can accept the defaults which Oracle is providing, or else you can set as required for your business unit. Next task. Create expense report template. So save and close. We didn't do any changes. Hardly we just updated prefix for expense report number. Search for expense report templates. So here is the task. Manage expense report templates. Click on the same task and click on plus icon. Just provide the name. So standard template for expenses. You may create different templates also. One could be travel related template. Other template could be some stationery related. The other template could be some outing, etc., etc. Various templates also we can create. So we are giving the name as ERP standard and select our business unit here. Financial services. Under expense types, click on plus icon. So provide the name. Say travel. Select relevant category. So when you say travel, again it is what? Airfare related or car rentals. Specify say airfare. Let's provide here also airfare. And that airfare account we have to select here. Click on drop down, search for airfare account. So it contains search. So domestic airfare or international airfare. Domestic. So with this we can book the expense related to the airfare charges. This field doesn't function properly in some instances. Bear with this field. Make sure you are finally selected. Let's try once again. I'll accept it. Now click on save and close. So we created one expense item within the template. Create few more. Say taxi. Select car rental as a category. Here select relevant account. Contains, check if account is available with the same name. Okay. Yes. Domestic car rental. So you may add few more expense items like accommodation and food, etc. etc. Just save and close. So this is how you can create the template. And if you are creating multiple templates, one template you can set as a default for this business unit. From this business unit, if any employee is going to create expense reports, this template will be defaulted. If you have multiple templates, one you can set as default so that the same will be defaulted. If you have only one template, automatically system will allow the users to select expense items from the same template. So if you have multiple, you can set one as a default. Just save and close. Done. So that's how we have to create expense report. Now we'll go and create employee user who is going to act as a manager. So directly you can create as a employee user, or you create user from security console. You can convert as a employee user. Any process you can follow. So we are going to create from here reason. If you are going to create user from here, we can set the password. If you create employee user directly from manage users task, anyway you have to come to this page to reset the password. The username is ERP manager. Set password. Save and close. We are not assigning any roles. We need manager user to approve the expense reports. The manager user is not going to perform any tasks. Now we'll convert implementation user as a employee user. Go to setup and maintenance. The task name is manage users. Go to the same task. Click on plus icon. Name it as ERP manager. Provide email ID. And always you set to past date as hiring date. We have bug in the most of the instances. If manager hire date is after employee hire date, you cannot create the relationship. That is a bug. And to select link user account radio option, select user. Now select person type as employee. This employee belongs to which BU and do legal employee, nothing but legal entity we have to select. Financial services, or BU name also same. Save and close. Take some time depending on instance. So we created one more user who is going to act as a manager. Now we are going to create the relationship between is two users as employee and supervisor. Now we'll go to ERP tree user. For ERP tree user, we will select this user or this employee as a supervisor. So find out ERP tree user. Select this record. Go to actions. Click on manage users action. For ERP tree, who is the supervisor? Select here. Save and close. So we clearly specified who is a supervisor for ERP tree user or ERP tree employee. Done. Now we have to set default expense account at employee. So which employee is going to create expense report? Accordingly, we have to set default expense account. The manager is not going to create any expense report. Only this user is going to create as per our use case. So now go to ERP tree user to set default expense account. Here is the user record. Go to actions, select expense information. Select expense information and provide address first. So select default expense account. So this user is associated with which BU, accordingly select BSV, balance and segment value. Here which account you select doesn't matter. When this employee is going to book the expense report based on expense item, what we are selecting, system will derive that account. The remaining account code combination it will take from the user. The natural account system will take from the expense report template. For airfare, we given natural account. For car rentals, we given natural account. If employee is going to book the expense report for airfare, that airfare account it will take from expense report template, remaining code combination except natural account, the remaining code combination system will derive from this field. So you can give any account, it doesn't make any difference. Any one of the expense account related employee you can select. Reality system is not going to take whatever the account you give here. Account it will take from the expense report template. Remaining code combination it will derive from employee record. Say okay. So expense check sent to address. In case if you are going to make the payment to employee by issuing the check, say employee spent expense and submitted expense report for reimbursement. Now you are going to reimburse the amount. So if you are going to issue the check, so where to send the check, that you can specify, say office. So we are setting the default expense account. Along with that, we are creating the address where the employee is located. So save and close. Done. The next task, we are going to create the approval rule. We are going to create employee supervisory approval rule. Search for approval group. It will navigate us to BPM. We are not going to create any approval group. Just to navigate, we are using the task. Select task configuration. So we are going to create approval rule for expense. Search fin exm. You'll find the relevant workflow. Now to scroll little down, then you can find the relevant task. Zoom out. Here is the workflow name. Fin exm workflow expense approval. Fin exm workflow expense approval. Select the workflow task. So click on edit. Go to assignees. Here we have many stages. We have many stages. We can use any one of the stage. Here we can see one stage is already enabled. We can use the same. Okay, we can use the same, or else you can disable and you can choose whatever you require. So you want to use single participant. Yes, you can disable this and you can use the same. Let's proceed with this stage. It's already enabled. Click on blue dot icon, select go to rule. There is one rule which is already created. Let's disable it. Create rule. Just click on plus icon, select general rule. If you want to provide the name for this rule, click on properties, employee supervisory rule we are creating. Now this rule should be applicable all the time. In the if clause, you can say 1 is 1. Just click on plus icon, click on simple test, say 1. Here also enter by clicking on search, enabling constant, enter 1. So the expression is 1 is 1. Yes, 1 is 1. When? Always 1 is 1. That means always the rule should be applicable what we are creating. Okay, 1 is 1 we given. That means always this rule should be applicable. Then go to then, click on plus icon and click on add approver. Select supervisory. Select supervisory. Now how many levels? These points already we discussed in case of payables itself. So number of levels 1 and starting participant. Click on search. So here we have to give the expression as task dot workflow submitter. The same, we are not changing anything. Okay, we are not changing anything. Whatever we did in case of payables for employee supervisory, the same we are going to do. Okay, so that's how it is. So here enter task, again case sensitive, task dot workflow space submitter, task dot workflow submitter. Say OK. And top participant, click on search. So here select get user to give any one of the top participant as per hierarchy. Here in the double quotes, you can enter ERP manager. Any one of the existing user you can provide. It makes sense if you give who is on the top level as per approval hierarchy. So that's how we have to give the specification. Now submit this for validation. Submit this rule for validation. Check the status. No validation errors or warnings found. Save this rule. And click on commit, which is equal to deploy. Done. Now assign roles to user. So this user is going to create expense reports. If you want to do some additional activities to act as a auditor, etc., we need additional roles. But this user is just going to create expense report. So we can go and assign role called as employee role. We need to assign the role called as employee role. The employee role will allow the user to create expense report. So go to security console, tools, security console. Go to users. From which user we are going to create expense report, to that user we need to assign role called as employee. Just click on username, click on edit, click on add role. The role name is employee role. So the role starting with ORA prefix. And if this user is going to act as a manager to perform certain activities, yes, you can assign the relevant roles, but as of now, not required. For us, employee role is enough. If you want to just assign other roles, you can assign roles like so expense audit manager, right? Few other expense related roles also you can assign. Just save and close. Now just you consider as we assign only employee role. If you assign other than employee roles, then you have to assign the business unit. For employee role, this user already connected to the business unit. This user can create expense reports only for the BU which is aligned in the employee user definition. While creating employee user, we selected legal entity and business unit. So this user will be able to create expense reports against that BU only. That's how it works. Now this we can ignore. This step we can ignore. We assigned employee role. For that employee role synchronization purpose, submit LDAP. Submit. Say okay. The role will get synchronized. Better we can log out and log in. So it will reflect immediately. System will establish the new session. It will fetch applicable changes to this user immediate base. So go to navigator. Let's talk about this. Okay, we completed required setups. Now we are going to create expense report from ERP3 user. So go to navigator. So within the navigator, go to section called me. Expand it. We assigned role called as employee role to this user. That role will enable task called as expenses here. Not only expense, many tasks it will enable. So you'll be able to find me because of employee role which we are assigning to this user. So under that we have many tasks related to employee. It is similar to employee self-service access. Now click on expenses. Click on expenses. And another important point is if you want to transfer expense report from expense application to payables, you have to make sure your BU is associated with location. Your business unit level location is not available. You cannot transfer expense report from expense application to payables application. Even you cannot create invoice or call it as payment request in the payables against customer refunds which you perform in the receivables application. So that's how location is mandatory. The field you see as optional. But when you are executing these concepts, there are a few other concepts which you come across in the advanced learning. In those cases also the location will become mandatory. If location is not available, you cannot execute those concepts. That's how it works. Now here is the one demo kind of video which you can just go through to understand. It is available in the YouTube also. The same they map here. You can click on it and you can see very high level how to create expense report that you can understand. So to create expense reports, click on create expense report task. Click on create expense report task. Now specify the purpose. It is travel related. And we have seen in the system options, payment term, payment method can be like we given payment method, override payment method we given as yes. That is the reason the payment method as a employee we can override. So it's all about how we are expecting the payment. So by following which method we are expecting the payment, employee can choose. Here you can include the specific expense which are incurred by employee. Click on create item. So template, ERP tree, ERP standard is available here. With the same BU, if any other templates are available, those you can see. Okay. So look, somebody created. Okay, please don't create. If you are attending the session, don't create all this. So these templates also created against same. Now I can guess somebody is creating while attending this session. Otherwise, no scope. So from this template, select expense type. We created only two expense types, airfare and tax. You are selecting airfare and provide amount. Say $250. And you can just provide the attachment, that proof of expense, airfare tickets, those you can just attach here. Now click on save and close. And enable the checkbox. I have read and accept the corporate travel and expense policies in the organization. This enable, when you enable, this submit tab will get enabled so that this expense report you can submit. If you have any other expenses incurred, yes, by following the same process you can add. Now, enable the checkbox and you can submit. Before submitting, if you want to see who is going to approve this expense report, you can click on the status called save. Click on saved status, then it will display who is going to approve this expense report. Once you submit, that we will be able to see. As per our configuration, ERP manager is going to approve. The same you can see what action system is going to perform. We can see now by clicking on the task called as save, the function called as save. Just say OK. Right, by clicking on save hyperlink, you will be able to see. So enable the checkbox, click on submit. This expense report will be submitted for approvals. The expense report submitted for approval. So here is the expense report pending approval. Expense report number you can see here. EXM is the prefix we given in the system options. The rest of number system generates by following the database sequence. But that expense report purpose also, whatever we given, you can see here. So travel we given. So assigned to manager 1 minute ago. As per the approval rule, this expense report is assigned to manager for approval. So within this expense report, we have only one item. Total amount is $250. Now, so log into the instance as a manager. Since the expense report what we created, it's a very first expense report. Generally, it takes some time to trigger the notification to the manager. If more notifications not available in the notification list from manager, we need to wait for some time. So we didn't assign any roles to manager, not required. Manager need only notification access, that by default that would be available. So click on notifications. Yes, the notification is available. So as a manager, you can approve it. Now just go back to employee user login. So username, ERP3, provide password. Now go to a section called as me. Click on expenses task. Here you can see expense report status is ready for payment processing. Ready for payment processing. And here you can open and you can see, or else if you want to create one more expense report similar to that, you can duplicate or you can submit for printing also. So that's how you can see the status primarily. Now status is ready for payment process. So when it's ready for payment process, that we have to transfer to payables by running this job. So we'll go and run this job so that this will be transferred to payables application. Go to tools and schedule processes. So job name is process expense reimbursement. Search for process expense. So here is the job. Process expense reimbursements and cash advances. So what this job will do, it will create invoice for the payment to employees. Okay. And of course, it could be corporate card issuers. Say okay. So business unit, we are going to run this process for which BU related expense reports. Select BU. It should reflect. It's not reflecting. So we'll do one thing. Ideally, that should reflect. It should allow. Okay, it is not permitted to this user. So we'll just go to data access for users. Through other role, we'll give the provisioning. This will map to this role also. Select business unit. See, by default, user can have access to BU because user level we have a business unit mapping. That is the reason this user is able to create the expense report that will belongs to same BU. Here you can just add for other role also. Even this user is not acting as an auditor, etc. Let's add it. So this will give the access. If you set this for this user to access this business unit in terms of running the process, so that should help. The role is expense audit manager. See, certain tasks provisioning is available through different roles. That is the reason just we are adding here. Even employee also can have access to that job, but still like the provisioning is missing. Users run this LDAP job for synchronization. Two jobs are already in the queue. Take some time. Now go to ESS job page, schedule processes. Say process expense select. Say okay. Okay, since we given the BU access to that user, of course we added another role also. Ignore it. So we given access to this user role called as employee for this BU. We are able to access. But without giving this, user can record the expense report where the employees belongs to which BU. That's how it works. So yes, expense reimbursement we are doing. Now click on submit. Say okay. Okay, the status is succeeded. Now go to payables to find out invoice against expense report. Here we can see in the recent 24 hours. So this is the expense report just now imported. 250. It is taking ERP tree as a supplier. ERP tree is employee, no supplier side. You can open the expense report. So by looking at this invoice number, we can understand this as a expense report since we have a prefix as EXM. Now click on invoice number to open the invoice. So look at invoice type, payment request. While creating expense report, we given purpose as a travel. The same is populated in the description field. and here it is displaying as a party. So party can be employee or party can be any outside party other than our suppliers. So it is taking as these and employee number. There is no supplier side. Party is not a supplier type party. So that's how you can see the description airfare. Now go to distributions. It should derive the airfare account. See domestic airfare. This account it is taken from the template based on the item what we selected. The remaining code combination except account, the entire code combination system will derive from the employee record. We given default expense account. From there, it will take remaining company, department, intercompany project, all the segment values it will derive from there. Only account it is deriving from expense report template. So that's how it works. So liability account we given in the expense application itself as a employee payables. The same it is derived. If you select in the system options, so derive the liability account from payables, whatever the liability account we have in the common options, the same it will fetch. So that's how it works. Now you can submit invoice for validation. Rest is standard process. So validated based on the payment terms, you can process for the payment. So that's how we can create expense report and you can get the approvals and you can interface the same to payables application. From payables, you can process the payment. That's all about expenses. Now just will quickly go through tax part. So when you talk about tax, the configuration what we do that we call as R2R flow. We call as R2R. It means regime to rate flow. In the specific regime where tax is applicable and what rate is applicable, those all we can configure by using regime to rate flow. Now what setups we have to complete? If you want to trigger the tax calculation, so what setups we have to complete, we'll see. First, we'll create tax regime. You can take it as a country when you say regime. Create tax regime and create taxes. Okay, create taxes. Where taxes are applicable, just we can define. And next we have to define tax jurisdiction. Let me just zoom in. So next we have to create the tax jurisdiction. The jurisdiction is the place where exactly the tax is applicable. So within the country, where exactly that you can create as a tax jurisdiction. So create tax jurisdiction. And what are the taxes you create? Those could be some standard taxes or zero tax. These all we call as statuses for taxes. Take as create tax status. And for the taxes, what we are creating, and with the combination tax, jurisdiction, status, we will set the rate. Say create tax rates. And we will set some tax options for the applicability that we can call as configure tax options or configuration owner tax options. That's how we can see the application. Let's make a note. Create configuration, okay, owner tax options. So these are the basic setups we have to complete to trigger the tax calculation. And along with that, a few other points also we have to validate to make sure the tax will work. And again, there will be option like where you go and set up the tax should start triggering or should not trigger. And even you can simulate, you can test based on these setups. System will calculate when you create the real transaction or not. Without creating real transaction, we can test it. For that, we have to keep few notes in the consideration. So we can say we discussed at the very beginning geographies. So there we have to check the tax related tax validation related checkbox are enabled as per our geography information that we have to check. That is one check. Let's make a note. Say we have a task called as manage geographies. So geographies level, we have to check the tax validation is set or not. So we have to check tax validation. And once it is set, we have to run the geography related validation program so that whatever the taxes are going to be calculated based on the geographies, the data would be populated in the relevant tax related tables so that that data system can use to calculate the tax based on the location or whatever level we are going to set. You can just make a note as run to validate geographies addresses. There will be job called as validate geographies addresses. So this job we have to run so that system will check tax validation is applicable and accordingly it will update the data. This data only system will use to identify so which location and what tax is applicable. Now when we create the tax, what we'll do is let's go with any one of the state. Say we'll take California. Okay, when you create the tax, so we want to calculate the tax if state is going to be California. Again, you can set other points also when we complete these setups. So that's how we can specify if we are going to ship to so California location, how much tax is applicable. Such kind of rules we can set. That we will do. For that reason, we will create the location also with the California. So create location. The location we are going to create as a California. You can set a ship to location or bill to location or remit to various options we'll have. Accordingly, we can just set up within the system environment. We'll create the location. The same location will assign to supplier also so that whenever you create any invoice against that, system will default that location. Accordingly, tax will be calculated. Here you can say assign the location to supplier, or you can say supplier site assignments level. The site assignment level, we assign the site to BU. The same record level you can set. Okay, based on ship to location, and all you can specify that. And once we are ready, here whatever the tags you are creating, the tags we have to enable for applicability. We can make it as a enable for applicability. And before that, we can conduct the simulation. We can conduct the tag simulation. We'll perform the testing. After testing, if it is working, we will enable for applicability. You can take the point as yes, we'll enable and we will go and test it. Yes. There will be 2 points. One is we enable for testing. Second one is if it is working, we'll enable for applicability. First, we'll enable tag simulation. So where we enable a tax level. Then we'll test the tax calculation without creating the real transaction. Without creating the real transaction, we will test, say, test tax calculation. So how do we test? By using the simulator. So there will be separate task called as tax simulator. With that you can test. You can just for identification, you can make a note. It would be like simulator transactions. Or you can see in the application point of view, manage simulator transactions. So once we simulate, once we test, if tax is calculating based on our configuration, then we can enable for applicability. So that you can make a note as enable tax for transactions. So where we enable this at tax only. Tax level will enable the tax to apply that to real transactions. So once we complete all these setups, we'll create invoice and we'll see how system will calculate. So create standard invoice in AP. Then submit that invoice for validation. We'll see the tax applicability. That's how it works. First, we'll go and create the tax regime. Go and set up a maintenance. Here you can find tax. Okay, tax section where you can perform setups and all. Tax regime, taxes, all the tasks. Directly you can search from here, or else you can proceed with the available tasks as required. First, we have to create tax regime. So here is the task, manage tax regimes. By default, tax regime always addresses specific country. Click on plus icon. Give the tax regime as ERP US tax regime. The code and name you can take as the same. And the regime level, country level, and which country. We are creating this tax regime for which country. So United States. It is taking currency default based on the country. And provide start date. So it's very generally recommended that always give the past date. Okay, past date here I'll make it as 20. It means 2020. Fine. So these are the basic details we have to give, and scroll little down. Here you have a configuration options. So select party name as our legal entity. You can give BU also. Okay, you can provide the BU business unit also. So then BU and legal entity names are same, but there is a additional specification, the legal entity. So accordingly, you can select. These are the BU business unit. Here also business unit. Look for financial services. Here is the financial services. Here is the clue. It is like legal entity definition. Select it. So party type is legal entity. And configuration for taxes and rules. These are seeded. Okay, you can select. So common configuration you can select, or else common configuration with a party override. You can select as a party override. Common option. These you accept the defaults, and applicability you may set from today, or you can give the past date. Now, here is the service subscription. Some clients, instead of calculating the tax by using Fusion Tax application, they go with the different third-party subscriptions, Vertex, Taxware, or different parties. In that case, you can add it. Okay, so you can add like here party leave it service provider. So Vertex is even they are just partnered with Oracle for this. There is a inbuilt integration with Oracle. It could be Vertex or Taxware or other tax engines. They integrate so that we no need to calculate the tax by using our configuration. So tax calculations, everything will happen within the Vertex application. Those will reflect in our application. That's how it works. So here, this is not applicable for us. Okay, just specify the configuration options. Say save and close. Now the next task is create taxes. Click on done. Here is the task. Manage taxes. The tax what we are going to create belongs to which tax regime. Select regime first. So we given the name as ERP US tax regime. Here is the record. Select and click on save and close. And now click on plus icon. So within this regime, we are going to create the taxes. That's how it is. But if you click on plus icon, you can see. So the information what here as per that application alignment, we given tax regime. Here the same code is reflecting. If you want to change, you can change. Since the selection scope, they made it as a mandatory to enter into the page we selected. After coming here, if you want to change, you can change. Since we given the same is reflecting, select configuration owner as a global configuration owner. You don't need to select our legal entity, you can select global configuration owner. And provide the tax name. Say, when you talk about US, we have sales tax. You can say ERP sales tax. The same tax you can take as a name. You treat tax as a tax code. And if you want to specify, you can specify the tax type also, but not mandatory. Just it is value doesn't have any functionality aligned with that. Okay, you can select sales tax or sales under use tax. It's just value for identification. Now, the geography type. So within this US tax regime, so the tax, sales tax, you want to calculate at what level? That you can specify. Say we want to calculate state level. Select state. So if it is geography type is state, what is the parent geography type? For state, the parent is country. Select country and provide country name, parent geography name. Select and say OK. And here we given required information. And we have here certain controls, and we can set up tax default rules, and we can provide the accounts. So these defaults you can accept as it is. Okay, we don't need to change anything. Now go to tax rule defaults. Here you have direct defaults you can set at this tax level. So place of supply. Here you can set how you want to apply the tax. Say system has to calculate the tax based on the ship to location. We are going to set if ship to location is going to be California, this much tax is applicable. That's how we want to set. Ship to location. You can say ship to, or else you can say ship to, use bill to if ship to is not available. Right? Or else you can say bill to, bill from, how it is required accordingly. All the values are available. These all values has some hidden coding. These are not just values. Based on these values, application will function. We select a tax type that is just value for information, but here these will have a functionality behind it. I'm selecting ship to, use bill to if ship to is not available. That's it. And tax applicability set as a applicable. Tax registration and all that also you can choose the same value. And these you don't change it. This standard what Oracle provides as it is we have to use. Now we created tax, and within that we are going to create the tax jurisdiction. We are going to create the tax status, and we are going to define the tax rate also. We'll see those. So here is the tax jurisdiction. So this tax what we are creating, in which jurisdiction that is applicable. So we clearly state a tax level. This tax applicable state level tax. It is state level. Which state and all we have to specify through jurisdiction. Select tax jurisdiction and click on create default. Just say save. Okay. Okay. Select tax jurisdiction. Click on create default. So now provide the jurisdiction name. Say ERP California tax jurisdiction. Same code take as a name. Now select geography type. So since this tax we set at state level, that only reflecting here, state only. and select the state name. Search for California. And here rest. Okay, here all the BUs are defaulting, ledger BUs. Here select financial services. The mandatory account system is defaulting based on our rapid implementation. That's fine. And say save and close. So because of rapid implementation, system is just displaying those details. Otherwise, you have to add those. We have seen that BU and primary ledger, those are reflecting because we loaded the data through rapid implementation. If it is manual setups, here again you have to select those and you have to provide the required accounts. So we declared this tax, the sales tax is applicable within this jurisdiction. The jurisdiction name is California. Clearly we define. Now within that, there could be multiple tax statuses. There could be standard, or there could be just 50% rate like exempted, exemptions. There could be some exemptions, or there could be some exceptions where tax is not applicable, or it can be called as a zero tax, etc. These all we treat as a statuses, different statuses for taxes. Now we have to define. So what tax is applicable in this jurisdiction? Select tax status, click on create default. A default. Now just provide the status. So ERP standard. The tax status is so standard. Standard rate is applicable. So just give that specification and you can say save and close. Done. So, but this tax, where it is applicable, we create a jurisdiction and status also is specified, standard and rate. So what rate is applicable? So select tax rate, click on create default. So for which tax status code we are going to set the rate? Standard. So rate you can say ERP standard at the rate of 10%. And this rate should be applicable where and where. The O2C cycle P2P if required in expense also. Now if you want to apply this should be applicable only for P2P, you just disable the rest of applicability. And you enter the rate percentage that we just given here 10, the same you can apply. Say save and close. So we created tax and that tax is applicable in which jurisdiction, which is what is the tax status, what is the rate we defined as a everything as a default. Done. So here you can see enable for tax simulation, enable for tax applicability for transactions. So that's what we discussed. So we have to set those later. Enable tax simulation attacks, enable tax for tax for transactions. So here we have to do, we'll do it later. First, we will just validate other points. Now, we created tax status, we created tax rates, and we'll see the configuration owner tax options. Click on save and close. Just click on done. Search for configuration. First, search for owner tax options. This is a task name. Manage configuration owner tax options. So already our tax regime in the scope. Click on the same task and click on plus icon and configuration owner. You can select our legal entity. Financial services. If you want to set at BU level also, you can set. So now what we selected is a BU one. Yeah, so BU, it's okay. Yes. So BU wise, we are setting here. Legal entity will reflect. Ideally, it should reflect. So within this business unit, when you create the transactions for which event classes you want to apply the tax, that you have to select. Say standard invoice. Payables, when you create the standard invoice, the tax should be applicable. So that we are specifying here, specify regime determination set. Select as a based on the tax regime, the tax should work. So that's how you can give the specifications. You just select tax configuration owner and select the event class and set start date. You can give today's date and the regime determination set. You can give as a what Oracle is providing and say save and close. Done. Now go to manage geographies to check the tax validation is set to yes or not, means enabled or not, we have to check. Go to task called as manage geographies. Go to global search. Manage geographies. Search for US. Click on validation defined. Your tax validation is enabled. Make sure this is enabled for 3 different address styles. Postal for address format is enabled. Tax address format enabled. Even no style format also make sure it is enabled. Reality this should be enabled, but recommendation is make sure for everything it is enabled. Done. There is no issue here. Now just run the job called as validate geography addresses. Go to ESS job page. tools, schedule processes, click on schedule new process, search for validate geographies. Yes. So validate geographies of addresses against master geographies. It verifies whether geographies elements of an address like state, city, postal code are valid as per the master geographies. Means within the system environment, there will be the actual data and what we have that is reflecting or not. Since we are using the drop down and all, we will be selecting the same. If you are entering through manual process, it could be different, but still you can run this so that everything will go smooth. Submit it. Okay, here you don't need to give any specification. Submit. It takes some time and it will complete. There will not be any challenges. I will go and create on location, the California, since the configuration we did and we specified a tax level ship to location. So manage locations. Click on plus icon. Just wait for a moment, it's taking time. So provide the name as ERP California. So provide the zip code. Say search. You can pick any one of the postal code. So make sure the state is California. Now submit. Say yes. Click on that. Okay, we created location. Assign this location to our supplier site. Okay, assign this location to supplier site so that with that supplier, if you create any invoice, if ship to location is going to be California, if ship to location is going to be California, system will trigger the tax calculation. Since tax level we given that rule as a, it has to look at the ship to location. That's all it is. Now go to supplier, procurement, suppliers. So our supplier name is Amex Corporation. Go to manage suppliers, search for Amex Corporation. Click on edit. and go to sites, click on edit. Go to site assignments. Here, specify shift to location. So ERP California. So save and close. Click on save and close. Yeah. So we completed location undo, location assignment to supplier site level. Now we'll go and enable the simulation to test it. Go to tax. The task is manage taxes. So within the tax regime, search for the taxes which are available, only one tax, select, click on edit. Now enable tax for simulation. This tax we are going to test without creating the real transaction. Enable the checkbox, say save and close. Yeah. How to test? There will be one task called as simulator transactions. With that we can test. Search for simulator transactions. Here is the task. Manage simulator transactions. So instead of creating invoice, the payables, say you will go and create invoice in the payables, tax will not trigger. That will become an issue. That is the reason first we can test here. If it is working, then we can enable tax applicability. So click on plus icon. And select. It's like similar to invoice creation. It's not a real invoice, but how you create invoice by following the same. Here we are going to create the transaction. The event class is purchase invoice. Select your legal entity. Select your business unit. Your document is number is nothing but equal to invoice number. Provide the document date. And who is the supplier? Amex Corporation, California address. Of course, as per this address, how it is created is fetching. So line description and all not mandatory. Scroll little right. Enter amount. Say 1 lakh. Ship to location. Okay, here already system is taken default ship to location. Ship to location already we given at site assignments level. Same you can specify here also. So this is how you have to enter. And if you just click on this tax calculation, here we have like view tax rules and evaluate. You can see that simply you can save. Ideally, system has to calculate the tax if the configuration is working. Here is one note. In some instances, it doesn't work. In that case, don't think setups are wrong. Try in the other instance. Some instances, even you do all the setups, it doesn't work. We'll see how it functions in this environment. Click on save. So here, the lines, line number, what category codes. On view tax lines. This tax is not going to reflect anywhere. It is just testing purpose. Here it is triggering means we'll go and enable the tax for the tax definition what we have. Accordingly, system will calculate the tax for the real transactions. It's not calculating in this environment. Finally, here it has to show like all the records. It's not calculating. Ideally, it should calculate here. It should trigger. But anyway, we'll proceed. Okay, we'll proceed and see. This is a testing. Here when we test, it should work. It's not working, but still we'll expect it may calculate. Ideally, when you test here, it should produce the results. Go to manage taxes, search for the taxes which are available, select, click on the tax name, click on edit. So let's enable for the transactions. Enable tax for transaction. Ideally, if when you simulate if it is working, then we will do it. But this is a kind of test environment. In some instances, doesn't work. Still, we are proceeding even it is not calculating. By hoping it may work when you create the transaction. Now we'll go and create the invoice and we'll test. Go to invoices. Create invoice. Select supplier. So go to lines. Provide distribution account. For testing, you can pick any one of the account. Now, here, system will default based on our setups, ship to location. So validate the invoice. So when you validate, system should calculate the tax. So system is calculating that you can find under taxes. Here you can find it's not just triggering in this environment. We'll try in the different environments. Setups remain same. Okay, some instances it doesn't trigger. You don't need to worry about it. So setups remain same. You try from your end. You try with a different instance. It may work. Now here we are using dev 35. So use the different instance and do the same setups for tax. That should work. So anyway, in the next session, we'll see how the tax will trigger. It is not like doing setups or target is, we have to see the results also. So in this environment, it is not triggering. See the other environment. So you count only up to setups. Just count up to setups. So we enabled and these again will redo in the other instance. I'll complete the same setups in the different instance. I'll complete the same setups in the different instance. So that's how like we can see the calculation based on this configuration. Now from this session, you count up to here. Just up to here. Yeah, this is okay. Enabling we did. Here it is not working. So these three tasks we'll do in the next session in the different instance. Setups will remain same. No changes in the setups. That's how it is. Okay. So the next session, we'll just complete this part which is pending from tax. And rest from GL side, yes, we'll go through FRS and we'll walk through these small simple functions. So that's how we can close. So that's all for today. If any questions from anyone, please. Expense we tested. Tax we configured as required, the basic configuration. But it's not triggering the tax calculation. Even for testing also is not working. That will just same setups will replicate in the different instance. And we'll see. Okay. Fine. So if no questions, that's all for today.